All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble. Of course, this Thursday live stream brought to you in part by Thomas Massie. Yes, we will be talking about that and the Adam Schiff censure debacle. The latest trend among Republicans is the same as the old trend, failing constantly. And there are some flies and fruit flies and some of those spring flies that just buzz around and they mate and then a few days later, they die. They're all basically piling aboard here. They like their coffee, too. They prefer to clank. We'll be clanking along. We get a lot to talk about. First news story of the day, of course, is the Adam Schiff story. We can't really avoid that. We'll also be reviewing Donald Trump's Bedminster speech, actually, from the other day. That was yesterday. The good, the bad, and the ugly, basically. The ugly being the technical issues. They reminded me a little bit of that scene in Ghost and Mr. Chicken. Which was with Don Knotts, of course, back in the day of Andy Griffith fame. And it was a comedic role, and they have microphone issues. I thought that was funny. When I was a kid, I watched that movie about a dozen times. Still like it now. Sort of in the same category as Arsenic and Old Lace and some of those old classic comedy movies, sometimes adapted from theater. In that case, not. Don Knott. Good movie, by the way. Look up The Ghost and Mr. Chicken if you want to have a cheap laugh. It's definitely a campy comedy movie from that particular era. Definitely worth watching. Also, we'll be talking about AI, among other things. But first, let us make sure we are live on Rumble. We are live on Rumble. I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to my plant. For those of you that like soundboard prank calls, you'll get the reference. I see there's plenty of chatting going on too. Sigilstone17, first again. Gary Baxter 001, Clank. Hey, Sigilstone. Spaz out, new profile pic. Who dis? Mrs. Tag, disavowed, Sigil. Yes, I officially disavow first posting. I'm thinking that when I do a live stream, I should just post first on my own live streams just to piss some people off. Like, I know you, Sigilstone, you don't do it habitually, but there are some people that actually do. It's like some sort of, I don't know, I guess it's a game or something like that. I never understood it. Yes, the electrician must be a Democrat. Miss Grimstock, you get the reference there. Don Knotts was fucking great. Andy Griffith was a good show. So is Gunsmoke. All those old classic shows. Bonanza was a great one, too. I didn't like the episodes that were more serious, like the one where I can't remember, Haas, I think it was the character. Had like a girlfriend, she had tuberculosis and in the end died or something like that. I didn't like those ones as much. I like the ones that were more full-on slapstick comedy. Same with Gunsmoke, same with Andy Griffith Show, etc. If you're going to do a comedy show, make it straight-up comedy. That holds over, by the way, for modern series as well. House MD, the first few seasons, mostly slapstick and dark comedy, really great. Once they start getting into the psychoanalysis of House himself, yeah, I kind of tuned it out after that. After, I think, the fourth or fifth season, it was just done for me. Same with Scrubs, actually. When you try to introduce a serious interpersonal drama into a literal slapstick / musical comedy, it doesn't go over so well. Rawhide was good, yes. I like all this. I watched all this shit on TV Land. My favorite was Gilligan's Island. Then they put it up against Gunsmoke in its own major slot, and they wondered why it lost and why they canceled the series. They didn't even bother to tell like John Denver and Tina Louise. They didn't even bother to tell Alan Hale, all of the people that were working there, hey, by the way, don't bother showing up because your series has been canceled. Oh boy, that should have gone on longer. They could have dragged it out for 6-7 seasons. It was doing fairly well. And then they made the movies, one with the Harlem Globetrotters, actually. Good movie. It was funny. It wasn't the same as the series, though. I didn't like the one where they returned to Gilligan's Island. They got off the island, and when they got back, they were all miserable. And then they ended up back on the island. I didn't find closure in that one specifically. Gilligan's Island was great. Yeah, Kaiwanf 8. Gilligan's Island was on for 3 seasons and on syndication forever. Exactly. You got 3 fucking seasons. Imagine the number of fans that Gilligan's Island generated after it was off air. Well, they should have kept it on air then. It was popular. Of course it was campy. It made no sense most of the time. The same comedic foil was trotted out over and over again. They find a way to get off the island. They have an opportunity, and Gilligan fucks it up. And it was always funny. By the way, Tina Louise, the only one left that's still alive, still looks pretty good considering I think she's in her mid-80s. and smokes weed like a trooper. Got pulled over at one point and arrested for that, and many such cases. Anyway, we have lots to talk about. I would like to talk about Gilligan's Island and campy 60s and 70s series for the entire stream. Maybe sometime I'll do that. We can do that. We can have a special show sometime. I'll have a 3-hour special some weekend, and I'll just talk about TV and film and stuff like that. But right now is not the time. We've got serious news to cover. The Agao Faces. I want a Styx, Hex, and Hammer 666 Fumo plushie. There will never be plushies. Free men die free. Dogpiling Massie is why conservatives aren't a serious people. They'd out Massie at this point and vote in another McConnell. Well, I mean, he's acting like Mitch McConnell. We'll be getting into that. As a non-Republican, I'm capable of criticizing anyone from any party. And there are plenty of people to criticize, more often than not. Fallen Hero 4567 sent $2. No chat. Thank you very much anyway. You can get a word in edgewise if you're paying me. Null Hypothesis. In Alabama, the Andy Griffith Show is considered a documentary. Yeah, I mean, it is sort of, the Southtown sort of 60s thing. Good show overall. Andy Griffith seemed like a person with the real person, not his acting role, seemed to be a good person. Apparently, he had sporadic fights with with Aunt Bay, the woman who played the older aunt on that series. Apparently, she didn't like some of the direction of where the series was headed at times and wanted it to be more Christian moralistic. And Andy Griffith's like, well, it's not really for that. It's kind of a fun, low-key series. Ozzy's Robots. Hey, Styx, I'm on the plane, ready to take off on my Alaskan cruise, obnoxiously playing you on this phone speaker for all to hear. Lol. Excellent. Everyone on the plane, subscribe. Styx, Hex, and Hammer 666. Clank along. When you get your in-flight coffee, make sure to leave the spoon in it when you're drinking it. It's as simple as that. It's basically a religion, Anyway, we're going to talk about the first news story here. I've got a couple of extra links open because we're going to explore specifically Thomas Massie's bullshit with regards to the Schiff censorship. Now, the Republican House the other day attempted to condemn Adam Schiff. He's the Democrat that lorded over lying to people for a protracted period of time. He knowingly lied to the American public. He misused public funds to the tune of tens of millions of dollars as part of his witch hunt bullshit. And he knew that it was bullshit. He obviously knew. They attempted to censor him. So effectively, it's a smackdown. It's saying you did wrong, and we recognize that, and we're officially chastising you. That's all it means. There was a fine associated with it for $16 million, which, by the way, is far less than Adam Schiff wasted on his committee at the time going after Donald Trump. Now, context. Thomas Massie has endorsed Ron DeSantis. Some of the Unipartyists, there were 20 Republicans that voted with the Dems to shelf this in order to not actually have a motion to condemn Adam Schiff at all. They didn't even want a full floor vote on the censorship. They wanted to table it entirely, not even discuss the matter. They are all stooges. Every single one of them is a sellout. And they fall into two camps. There are those that are doing that because Orange Man bad. And then there are those that are doing it because Republicans don't like to win. And it's about an even mix. Either one of those groups, by the way, would have been enough votes to table the resolution. The resolution simply said, Adam Schiff, you done fucked up, and now you owe money because you wasted a shit ton of money. Thomas Massie, of all of the people that decided to cross aisles to vote with the Democrats to defend a TDS-suffering Democrat and hand him his slot in California, which he's going for in the wake of some of their political shakeups there, there's a little bit of a reshuffling of the deck. Adam Schiff is one of the primary recipients of aid as the result of this move. With this, Thomas Massie came out the other day, and he made a tweet. And by the way, he's attempting to mock people that are mocking him on Twitter, and said, well, I can't vote for this because of the 8th and 27th Amendments. It's unconstitutional to do what we're about to do. So we're going to read the 8th and 27th constitutional amendments and see if we can identify anything that is pertinent to Adam Schiff being fined millions of dollars for having wasted many more millions of dollars. Shall we? Let's read them verbatim. Amendment 8. Excessive bail shall not be required. nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Now, this isn't a bail issue. It's not an issue of cruel and unusual punishment. It's a fine that we're talking about. So those parts of the amendment clearly don't have anything to do with it. The part that Massie seems to be referring to is excessive fines. Well, you're trying to fine him $16 million. Well, his net worth isn't that high, so you can't do that. It's an excessive fine. Firstly, this is an act of Congress upon a sitting Congress member. So that's different from the excessive fines that the judiciary could potentially hand out. So you've got that nuance. We've got to keep that in mind. Secondly, I looked back through Thomas Massie's past on Twitter. I did an advanced search. I didn't see him say one mumbling fucking word when Alex Jones was fined 1.5, not million, but $billion for talking about the Sandy Hook families. I see no mention of him complaining about excessive fining or bail in literally any other case. I couldn't find a single example. I ran through multiple iterations of search. I can't find anything. So Adam Schiff, again, a Democratic member of Congress who lied flat out and objectively to the American people. It is beyond the pale and unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment to fine this individual while at the same time the judiciary and or Congress has fined other people inordinate sums of money far beyond their actual net worth over and over and over again. Now, on one token, I will agree with Massie. Fining in civil cases in the judiciary sense, of course, this is a legislative sense. Again, there's the nuance. It's therefore a little bit more vague as far as the constitutionality of the fine. Yes, absolutely. There is excessive fining that goes on. People are routinely ruined and bankrupted by the government all the time for even minor things. That's true. Thomas Massie's not wrong. Why is it that all of a sudden when it's Adam Schiff, then it's when you speak up? When it's supposedly a member of the opposing party and you're supposedly a principled conservative, whatever the fuck that means. It's because Thomas Massie has decided that his TDS is so bad, Orange Man's so bad, what he doesn't want to do is solidify a congressional vote to punish Adam Schiff, because the reason why Adam Schiff was lying was because he wanted to go after Orange Man. But Thomas Massie doesn't like Orange Man. He likes Ron DeSantis, so he doesn't want to vote for it. So he drags out this lame constitutional concept, which does not even apply. Next, we'll look at the other amendment that he mentions, the 27th Amendment. Now, maybe this one, maybe it fits a little bit more, like an out-of-place Lego brick. Let's read it and find out. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. So in other words, Congress can vote itself a raise, but the raise can't come into influence until the next iteration of Congress. You have to have an election in between. What the fuck does that have to do with fining a member of Congress? The fine doesn't affect their salary. He's still getting his salary. He's still getting paid. He's just been fined on top of that salary for lying to people. The fact that Thomas Massie expects his fans to be so fucking retarded that they would take the 27th Amendment if they knew anything about it, and well, 99% of them don't. It's the general public doesn't know anything about the Constitution beyond a couple of amendments, depending on which ones the party happens to be talking about profusely at the time, and then they typically misinterpret them. And the problem is that it has nothing to do with the issue. Nowhere in the 27th Amendment does it say a member of Congress cannot be fined. How would you even materially punish a member of Congress if the 27th would cover such an issue? If Congress can't even condemn an individual and say, look, you lied, you wasted a bunch of money, we're censoring you, we're fining you. If you can't even fine the individual, then short of committing a violent felony and ending up in actual prison, how could a member of Congress possibly face any repercussions for anything that they do? Well, quite clearly, they couldn't. Thomas Massie is being disingenuous. He knows that these amendments have nothing to do with the vote that he just took part in. He's doing that for cover. He's pretending to be a strict constitutionalist. The 8th and 27th won't allow me in good conscience to vote for this censorship movement. But it has nothing to do with what you're being asked to do. Adam Schiff lied to the American people and deserves to be punished. What I would ask Massie this, if I had him for 5 minutes, I'd ask him one thing. If the resolution were readopted, absent the fine, and it was just a condemnation and a censure in the normal sense. Or if the fine was significantly reduced, so it was below his net worth or whatever arbitrary bullshit you're pulling out of your ass right now, would you vote for that? I have even odds that he wouldn't, because he wouldn't want to put his name to a vote that seemed like he was defending Orange Man. That is exactly what this is about. Thomas Massie is running cover for Ron DeSantis because he does not like Donald Trump, and for no other reason would he possibly defend Adam Schiff, of all people. So the motion did fail. It fell short because 20 Republicans decided to join with the Democrats. Normally, when things are bipartisan in nature, they're not a good thing. Bipartisanship in the old days was a good thing. Okay, the two parties have come together. They realize something's necessary. They're trying to establish some sort of civic ideal, some sort of infrastructure, something that's meaningful. Over the last roughly 50 years, when there is a bipartisan compromise, usually it's pig in a pokery. It's the Patriot Act or infrastructure law or something like that. It's the budget that was just passed by Kevin McCarthy and by the Democrats. It's a pig in a pokery. It's a pile of bullshit that under normal circumstances no reasonable person would support, but you do brinksmanship until it's right down to the line, and then you pass it in the dead of night. With this, with the Adam Schiff rebuke, it is the same thing. The Republicans that have crossed the aisle aren't doing that because it's unconstitutional. Well, we just can't do it. No, it's because some of you want to lose. Some of you are afraid not to lose. And some of you, like Thomas Massie, are dunderheads and you're being malevolent. Thomas Massie is in the malevolent crowd as far as this bill goes. He can't possibly in a million years explain how either of the amendments he explicitly invoked have anything to do with Adam Schiff, because they don't. His salary is unaffected by being fined. $16 million is a fine. Oh, my goodness, if that is a excessive fine and unconstitutional, where have you been for literally years that you've been in Congress with regards to similar excessive fining of private individuals, especially of influencers and political activists? Nowhere to be found. You said absolutely nothing about it. You have lifted not one finger in those cases, but all of a sudden you're willing to bow down before George Washington's statue and a crying eagle because it's unconstitutional that Adam Schiff should suffer, even though you have objective proof that he lied to the whole population for several years running. And he knew that he was lying. So Thomas Massie, well, I had some respect for him before. I didn't necessarily respect his endorsement of DeSantis, but I had no specific personal gripe with him ideologically. He's in the trash can now, irredeemably. I mean, come on, where do you get off even talking about the Constitution in the context of fining a person? You're not a member of the judiciary. You don't determine what an unfair fine is. SCOTUS does. You're a member of the legislature. That's not even within your legal purview. You're not you're not the one that needs to interpret what is or is not constitutional. You ask every member of Congress what the Eighth Amendment cutoff is for what would be an excessive fine. You're going to get 200 different answers. So why even bother talking about it? And by the way, he's being dogpiled by a lot of people as a result of his dumb opinion, which I find funny. He deserves it. Treasure Troller, Marianne or Ginger Sticks? I prefer Ginger, actually. I know some people probably think I'm a Marianne dude. The Spence Fencer first was a trend from FARC heydays, pre-2010. Well, unfortunately, it remains a meme. Big boy, if any Republicans still want proof that the GOP in its current form is beyond redemption, this is it. Yeah, exactly. Those that a lot of Republicans, they either want to lose, they expect to lose and get all cowardly, which is most of these people, thankfully, or they're outright malevolent. They're doing it for political gain. Thomas Massie voted against condemning Adam Schiff because he doesn't like Trump and for no other reason. And you know it. I mean, his public statements belie the fact that that's the reason that he voted against it. Principled, my Constitution. What the fucking Constitution doesn't say anything about these things. A fucking moron. Sparky, look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Maniacal laughter. Tarl Styx Warwick, founder and fearless leader of Clank Nation. Free men die free. Massie is trying to hold Pelosi accountable for her COVID abuses of power in the House. If he voted for fining Schiff, it would ruin his case. How? I'm scratching my head. I have heard that one before, and I'm still waiting on an explanation for people that, for some reason, have a hard-on for Thomas Massie. Solar Bear, I'm shocked they didn't call criticism of Schiff anti-Semitic. Scott McLaughlin, Massie will be primaried, as well as Kylie and McClintock. They seem to be active members of the Uniparty. We need to hold their feet to the fire. Yes, and then when those newcomers without incumbency lose those seats, the Uniparty will turn around and blame Trump for it. Whether he wins or loses in 24, he'll be responsible for all these nutcase Unipartyists losing their seats out to Democrats. I predict, by the way, officially that the Dems will retake the House in 2024. If nothing else changes, I expect it to be a blue wave in the House, actually. I do not expect them to lose control of the Senate, despite the favorable map. That's a prediction. That's not to black pill people. That's just pointing out when the Uniparty heads like McConnell and McCarthy are against their own party, when elements of the party are self-sabotaging like this and therefore guaranteed to face stiff resistance, therefore weakening them whether they prevail or not, and or non-incumbent getting in, yeah, you're going to suffer. You're going to hemorrhage losses. Absolutely. Hair Juicer 3000. Three Stooges is me and my dad's favorite show. They were good. Laurel and Hardy, many others. Black 995. Happy Father's Day, Sticks. Oh, it's Father's Day today? Oh, I didn't know that. I don't celebrate it. Liz was talking about Father's Day. I'm like, if she wants to give me a gift or something. I'm like, just give me a good meal. Cook me something that's delicious that I don't have to cook. I like cooking, or let me cook. Let me cook whatever I want, and you have to eat it. Because Liz, for some reason, she doesn't really like Indian food a lot. And I'm like, the fuck? Lentils are great. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Followed your example and donated for the first time ever to the Orange campaign, #ClankNation. Yes, I donated $100 to Donald Trump, actually, his campaign the other day. Thank you for that. Molly Mesher, love you, Sticks. Longtime listener, first time super clanker. Excellent. Make sure to clank along. Oh, by the way, I do have a new BitChute mug. The old one, actually, I dropped it accidentally and it broke. And I was all fucked up because I think they've got a different design now, or there are only so many of them. And I got a replacement, so I don't have anything in it right now. Oh, shit. Anyway, Matthew Hammond, the censure is coming back up for a vote without the fine, according to a tweet by the person that put it up for a vote. And we'll see if Thomas Massie has any balls left. Even odds that he votes against it next time. He'll make up some other excuse. Well, I can't vote for this because we already had this vote, or something like that. What a moron. Rockstar Podcast, currently 3 days sober after 20 years of smoking weed and struggling with alcohol addiction. Just beginning this battle. Well, keep going. Yeah. I personally don't see it as a vice to smoke a little weed once in a while myself. Alcohol, definitely more addictive. I've struggled with that myself. It's a vicious cycle. Demabliz, Slaps laptop. My new laptop has 200 Fallout 4 mods, Sticks. That's a lot of mods. I think I've got about 30. Opinionated Junkie. I am black-pilled on the GOP except Trump. Well, there's Rand Paul exists, so there are other good guys in the GOP that actually attempt to win. It's just that it's a minority within the GOP. That's the problem. The other Brad Bird, I'd love to hear your thoughts on right to repair. I support it fully. If you're talking about smartphones and so forth, the right to jailbreak them in order to tinker with them and keep them working, because Apple, Crapple as I call them especially, likes to make them senescent before their time. Yeah, absolutely. You should have a right to do that. Stomach Turning Thrush. I would love to see an occult video about your views on the Bilma's faces. Really interesting and odd, supposedly paranormal anomaly. Haven't heard of that one. Here, I'll queue it up right now and I'll look into it. Thank you. I'll do that as a topic in the future. Oh, yeah, I've seen that before. The ectoplasm faces. I couldn't remember the term. I'll look into that. I'll formulate an opinion. Next news story, by the way, we've got Donald Trump speaking in Bedminster. Here's the good. Donald Trump lashed out at the indictment process, the persecution, not really prosecution, of himself and others, Walt Nauta, etc. And he he ticked all the boxes on that one. The bad is that at this point, what Donald Trump needs to do is counterintuitive. He needs to begin ignoring the indictment circus except for fundraising purposes and maybe mentioning it as an aside while putting forth his actual platforms. When this race began, when Trump first threw his hat into the ring, as we all knew that he was going to do anyway, one of his first campaign videos, which he uploaded to Rumble, was on internet censorship. And it was perfect. It was a 10 out of 10 as far as that particular plank in his platform goes. Reform 230, exactly, by the way, as I've suggested reforming it. So be a platform or a publisher. You can't be both. That's point number one. Perfect. Internet Bill of Rights, number two. Perfect. Prevent the government from engaging in censorship through third parties of a corporate nature. Perfect. Everything was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted to hear. I want more of that Trump and less of Trump looking back at 2020, which he is segueing away from, I will note. So that's to his credit. And less about the indictment circus. It's fine to raise money off of it. It's fine to point out that it's a bullshit process. It's fine to point out, and I wish you would point this out more vociferously, it's fine to point out that the U.S. government has thrown away more than 2 centuries of legal and civic precedent just to persecute one man who they claim is a threat to democracy despite no demonstrable evidence that anything untoward ever happened with any of the papers at the Mar-a-Lago. Those are all perfectly fine. But you also have to have a standard campaign on the side. I need more meat on the bones. Trump is risking, and I know it's early in the game, so we'll give him time. He risks running afoul of getting distracted effectively, of having to play defense. Trump is not a defensive linebacker. Trump is pure offense. Trump is the person who shoots, not the person who absorbs the bullets. Trump is an attack dog. The attack dog should just go on the attack full frontal, latch on, and hold on for dear life. That's how Trump fights. That's what he did in 2016. He did it very well. That's what he did in the 2018 midterms. Those worked out well. I like hearing people claim with TDS suffering that Trump somehow fucked up the 2018 midterms. Okay, you're misremembering history if the Senate exists, but, you know, people have some problems. In 2020, he did it well, but honk, honk, certain fortifications occurred. And in 2022, while he was playing attack dog and doing everything he can, he still gets blamed because of what Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell did, namely throwing several dozen of their own House and several Senate candidates under the bus by refusing to back them in any meaningful way. Trump would have had to have sold one of his skyscrapers to make up the difference. Well, clearly, a sane person is not going to do that. As far as the speech goes, the ugly was the audio problems. Link in the description if you listen to this. It sounds like an RFK speech because the audio system clearly was having issues. I've looked at several feeds of this particular speech. I haven't found any of them that are remotely clear. Half the time you can barely tell what Trump is saying because of the microphone issues. This is, by the way, it's a rare glitch. It sort of echoes Ron DeSantis' first campaign announcement. So I guess that's one off for Trump on that one. And speech makes more impact when people understand what you're saying without, listening really closely and playing it at a half speed, So I hope that Trump fires whoever was responsible for setting up his microphone at the Bedminster place there. Let's see. Many more super chats. If I can figure out where I left off. Oh, God. That was the last one, yeah. Patrick D. Clank on, Sticks. Thank you, I shall. Blaze, make another video on Goy Slop. Yeah, I've mentioned that before. Hair Juicer 3000. Recently broke my daily booze habit, too. CBD helps a lot with insomnia. Lots of red meat helps the hormone imbalance. Red meat is good. Also, lots of dark green vegetables. David Hunter, I gave notice at my work that is going woke. Got a new job, 7-1, for a privately owned business. Sad because I otherwise enjoyed where I work. Well, as long as you stay employed and you do your work, maybe you'll like your new job better once you get into it. RS3T Cool Guy. Sticks, one day would you make a video of yourself in wizard garb reading the Tiananmen Square copy pasta? Having an actual wizard cast a spell, exorcism to get rid of commies would make my day. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, maybe. I can get a wizard outfit. Time it with a Halloween or something. Let's see. Null hypothesis. Do you know if anyone ever produced a limited run of Little Sticks, I Won't Back Down doll behind you and show of Infotoon cartoons? I want one. This was 3D printed, actually. And I don't know if it's available. I think it's a one-off, actually. Sigil Stone 17. Massie should just quote the 0th Amendment. We're above the law and there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, exactly. He's decided to join forces with the Uniparty, pretending that he's a constitutionalist. I see right through it. Kenezy fam, keep gaming or talking like a Rumble rock star. Always shall be. Well, there's 2,200 people watching live on Rumble, a bit more than they're watching on YouTube. Many such cases. See, YouTube algorithmically demotes me. I still hear from some of my critics, well, you've gotten boring. That's why your audience isn't growing as fast as it used to. It's funny, I don't seem to have that problem on Rumble. I don't seem to have that problem literally anywhere else. I'm soaring ahead on Twitter. YouTube just wants to fuck me in the ass because they got the memo from the ADL or the SPLC. And it's as simple as that. Next news story. CNN reporting 42% of CEOs surveyed at the Yale CEO Summit this week, so the Skull and Bones Club, say AI has the potential to destroy humanity 5 to 10 years from now, according to survey results shared exclusively with CNN. I would like to analyze this, as I have from this same perspective a couple of times before. This means that 42% of the CEOs that were surveyed there have skin in the game with companies that are tinkering with AI, and they want the government to come in and hyper-regulate it so it doesn't end up like the dot-coms or social media or crypto, where a bunch of upstarts managed to make huge upward mobility, some of which became competitive. You look at Twitter. Jack Dorsey, to his credit, initially, before he got jaded and corrupted by, his inordinate power, was effectively the closest thing you can imagine to a real left libertarian. Of course, they don't exist, but he came close. He did not like censorship. He did not like the concept of fiddling with algorithms. The same is true of YouTube in the early days. The same is true of fucking Zuckerberg in the early days, although he is a CIA plant, so that was more subversion. Some of the people that made it big, look at 4chan with Pool and so forth. Some of the people that made it big on tech in the dot-com or social media eras, certainly people that ended up with crypto exchanges currently being wiped out of existence by the SEC mainly. There's a reason for that. They're trying to put the genie back in the bottle. Had libertarian leanings. They did not like attacks on free expression. They didn't see it as their role to police speech. They saw it as their role to police illegal content and then call it a day. And that's it. What they don't want is for AI to be developed by a crowd-funded group, a grassroots group, etc., and become profitable. They would like to make it illegal to develop your own AI systems. I'm sure that they'll probably be passing legislation about that, and they're marketing it on fear-mongering. The CEOs are fear-mongering about it because they want a stake in that monopoly, because monopolies are profitable for the stakeholders. The reason why people in government want to crack down is because they're afraid that somebody with views outside of the normal orthodoxy of neolib, neocon Inc. is going to have control of an AI system that becomes popular and potentially utilize that to influence people. That would be election interference. Of course, if OpenAI or ChatGPT or whatever the fuck Twitter ends up working on, if they influence people to be more neoliberal by maintaining that orthodox approach to what is reality through fact-checking and through the censoring of the AI system, that won't be considered interference in an election. That won't be considered disinformation. No, it's countering disinformation. We're telling you what you're supposed to know, and we're telling you the proper way to know it, and anything outside of that is misinfo, propaganda, or extremism. It's as simple as that. That's exactly why they're doing this. What they're worried about is a fourth tech wave. The dot-coms quickly got out of hand. People built random dot-coms. I mean, look at Google. Google originally, it's just a small dot-com. Yahoo was originally dominant. Google emerges, and the establishment has to spend the better part of a decade putting the worms back in the can because it was originally founded by people who had different views from the people who currently run it. YouTube the same, et cetera, et cetera. Social media does the same. Crypto certainly. That's why they're trying to wipe out the exchanges so that they can have a central bank digital currency. It'll be fine for people currently holding because a lot of them are big corporatists. I'm sure it'll be interchangeable in a markup with standard currency in the digital sense. I'm sure that won't be a problem. But the little guy that would otherwise become capable of upward mobility needs to be frozen out. The reason why they're doing this is that they're attempting to do it preemptively with artificial intelligence. They don't want to wait until it really takes off. This is, by the way, also a bet by the Uniparty system that it will take off. If you're invested in AI right now, disclaimer, this is not investment advice, you're probably in a good position. This is their tell. This is them tipping their hand at you and saying, look, we know that this is going to take off, become more popular. It's going to become a big thing. So we want in to begin with. We don't want to wait like we did with social media. The term legacy media, by the way, was coined in 1998 to describe media firms that didn't have a .com presence of any significance. They were left behind. They hemorrhaged and hemorrhaged and hemorrhaged to the point where they had to spend billions of dollars collectively on on ads and shit like that just to have a presence on places like YouTube. Go back 10 years. I'm wondering if anyone has an archival page. Go back 10 years and try to find me how many people were watching CNN on YouTube. They had to be promoted over and over and over via ESG, by the way, in part, in order to even have an established audience on the platform. And YouTube at this point is old hat. It's a 20-year-old website. Same with Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the long and short of it. AI is not going to cause human extinction. Unless, of course, we allow the authoritarians to make sure that they're the only ones monopolizing it. What we need is a free market approach, like we had with DACA. They said the same thing about social media. Oh my God, terrorists are going to recruit people. Oh my God, people are going to be selling each other into slavery. People are going to sell drugs. They'll sell weapons. Oh my God, the sky is falling. Yeah, these things happen, but not particularly commonly. The big problem is that the government came in, hyper-regulated these sorts of things, and the problem is 100 times worse. People who are not trafficking anyone, they're not dealing crack, they're not selling illicit weapons, etc., are the ones that are banned. That's what they're going to do with AI. It'll become entirely proprietary to the point where if you misuse it in any way, if you screw around with it, if you try to use it for a purpose that's too competitive with a corporation, you simply get locked out. Like that Amazon home assistance or whatever the fuck they use, owner. The other day it was reported he was locked out of his home for a week because the delivery driver thought he heard something racist come from the Amazon system. I don't know how true that is, but I can definitely, I can imagine. I believe the story preemptively. Let's see. Cynic, any thoughts on Warhammer 40K? Never played it, don't know a huge amount about it. I like Nurgle, though. Lifecock, I saw YOB last weekend. It was sick, bro. Mopey Hornet, Sticks, what is your opinion on Diablo 4? Never played it. I'm assuming that's a video game. I know nothing about these things. I don't do a lot of gaming. I've been playing some Minecraft. Overall, though, I prefer to spend my off time doing book stuff because it makes me money. Rockstar Podcast. If I want to start a podcast, what social media platform should I explore in addition to YouTube and Rumble? Also, what is a good streaming software? I use StreamYard, and Substack would be another. They have a podcasting capability. Ashley, those legacy media view numbers seem rigged to me. Well, they are, quite literally. They've got priority status. YouTube explicitly promotes them in related videos and in search. So if I make a video on a topic, and I'm the first one that made it, I'm the only one with that search term available in the title while people are searching for it because it's going viral, I do well. The second that CNN uploads even a 2-second clip on the topic, I disappear. This is why my audience totals on YouTube are stagnant while they're quickly rising on many other platforms. YouTube uniquely has decided to shaft me in that manner. And anyone that disagrees, they can study some statistics or gain another 10 years experience as a content creator. I'm not the only one it's happening to. Pipkin Pippa Chi, Phrase Connect. Thoughts on VTubers? Ghost wants to become one. Isn't that where you have like a little avatar on the side that pretends to be you based on the motions of your own like self? I don't know. I'm just going to be myself on camera. If I want to do that, I'll just put on a lot of makeup and a weird dress or something. I'll put on a kimono. Molly Measures, anyone, don't be afraid to check out your local AA group. Been sober 10 years with their love and guidance. Don't think I could have done it without them. The Sober Laugh. Let's see here. There's a couple on Rumble. Let me try to find them. Sigil Stone. I think you can out up custom emojis for paying subscribers. Yes, I can put custom emojis on Rumble. Absolutely. I'm thinking about making a few. I think there's the Ouroboros logo. I think is I loaded that as an emoji on the free setting. I tinkered with that. Yeah, maybe I'll put a couple on there. Spoon clanking or something. I'll check it out at some point. The Grizzly 617. I still plan on painting you that Warhammer Nurgle Death Guard army. It's on the back burner, but it is on the list. Clank for loving Grandpa Nurgle. Yeah, Nurgle seems to be the one, ironically enough, who is the most benevolent, because he makes people sick and decrepit and crippled, but they don't feel pain anymore, so they don't care. Whereas all the other Warhammer deities that I've known anything about, they seem to be all nuts. Next news story, the Nashville shooters manifesto, still not available. You may have noticed that the cat is outside singing and trying to distract me, so I'll try to pile through things. Government officials have neither the right nor the credibility to stand in the way. Now, I'll point something out. It's one of those situations in legalese that shouldn't be, but is. They unfortunately do have the right to prevent you from reading the Nashville shooters manifesto. Not technically. Technically, the public interest absolutely supersedes their authority to take that piece of evidence, since the shooter is dead, and claim that it's going to remain effectively locked away because it might inspire other people. Well, the public can't know that that's actually true unless the public is capable of accessing it. So it should not be kept away from people. My belief is that they will find that it's inconvenient for left-wingers what is written in that manifesto, and or because they're claiming that there's an ongoing case it pertains loosely to, that it involves abuse allegations at the actual school. If that's the case, while it makes sense for legal purposes, a redacted version could very easily be released, but they're not doing that. The reality, though, is that the justice system often operates outside of its own laws that they supposedly are there to enforce. We see this with the Trump indictment. We saw it with Ammon Bundy back in the day. The Bureau of Land Management went in and effectively tried to hold the man and the entire property hostage. In the end, despite the fact that he faced all sorts of charges and so did his son, they were exonerated. Why? Because they had done nothing wrong. The government at the time was violating his rights. But does the government have any constraint on it in violating your rights? Well, let's ask the people at Waco if that happens to be the case, or the whole family there at Ruby Ridge. The government acts with impunity. So when I see the local government here in Nashville covering this document up for clearly political reasons and or pertinent to an investigation, not hazarded if it's at least released in part in redacted form, I call bullshit, but I don't expect anything to happen because there's nobody to look into it. What force, unless the federal government under Joe Biden, no less, is willing to look into the contents there, nothing can be done. If the state and local government don't want to release it, you can FOIA it maybe 10 years from now. Then you'll know what actually was written down there. I have a feeling that part of it is abuse related. I do actually believe that part, if you insinuate that from the statements given by the police there. But that doesn't mean that the public doesn't have the right to know. I mean, it's not going to hazard an investigation unless there's an ongoing. Do you have are you actively wiretapping a perp at the school for child abuse or something? Well, I would think by now, wouldn't you have evidence? Because this manifesto is quite some time old now, isn't it? Don't you have enough evidence by now that the pervert is a pervert? I have a feeling that a teacher or teachers there are alleged in this document to have abused students, including the shooter. And that those individuals are being investigated possibly for other unrelated matters, and so that's why they're withholding it. You can always redact that section. The manifesto is more than just, hey, this teacher diddled me when I was 13. I guarantee that. It sounds like it's a longer document. It's an actual manifesto. It's not a piece of paper. Chaos Josh, why didn't Trump pardon the J6? He could have preemptively. Yes, but had he done that, he would definitely have gotten indicted, and the Republicans would absolutely have thrown him under the bus immediately. He would not have much support at all. He's being strategic. By the way, I would note that he's raising money for them and funding their legal bills. Some people are claiming otherwise, but it is on record that he is actually doing that. Debbie Donovan, any thoughts on Anthony Weiner's laptop? Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad that I don't have to read through it, because I'm sure that there'd be interesting pictures and video footage on it. The sort that under normal circumstances a person ends up in prison for the rest of their lives. With Anthony Weiner, he gets a slap on the wrist, and I think isn't he out now, literally in public, allowed to go to elementary school playgrounds. Ashley, my guess is a female teacher got intimate with the shooter and convinced them to transition. Won't know till it's released. Well, probably never will be. McNuck69. Why are they so persistent on a non-existent case? I have to think they have something dubious up their shifty sleeves. Adam Shifty. Is there a possibility of them preventing him from running that I'm not seeing? Thoughts? They might try that. They might try an act of Congress. I'd get bogged down in the courts. But again, if a decision is made, then unless there's an injunction, it stands until such time as the case is decided. They might attempt to do that with Donald Trump. I have no way of knowing. The cat is once again singing out there. I don't know what her problem is. She's been woolly all day. Wild and woolly. Next news story, the Great Convergence, global equality and its discontents. Now, I'm only going to gloss this over. The basic premise is that global inequality is at a low that's not been seen for a very long time. So actually, inequality is getting better. I would like to point out that equality is bullshit in general. Equity is bullshit as well. You don't need equality. What you need is a situation of fairness. What you need is free markets, competition, and things like that. Those work historically. Trying to make everyone completely equal is normally accomplished in the present day, not by uplifting those at the bottom. That's how they sell it. They say, well, we just want to uplift these tired and poor masses. Okay, that sounds fine. People at the bottom get a little bit more. They have better food. They have better medical care. They have a roof over their heads. That sounds good. It sounds kind. But that's just the marketing strategy. It's sort of like when you slap the American flag on the tobacco box. Well, the tobacco will still give you cancer, but it's patriotic cancer now. I'm sure that your tumors will be red, white, and blue. It's like ESG. It's when and speaking of tobacco, Philip Morris getting a very high ESG rating because they've invested a lot in the environmental sector and so forth. People are beginning to notice how big a grift the entire situation is. I should probably make a video on that tomorrow. Look it up, Philip Morris ESG. Prepare to have your mind fucking blown. Anyway, the inequality is normally addressed in reality by taking those that have a bit more and dragging them down. Now, you don't do that to the top dogs. The big-time corporatists that are always the boogeyman that you claim that you're going to go after, like with Biden's IRS expansion, the corporate tax, a la Bernie Sanders, et cetera, that never actually happens. What you end up doing is dragging people in the upper middle class or the marginal wealth, so the working rich, a doctor, a surgeon, a good lawyer or something. You drag them down and sap them in order to give welfare breadcrumbs to the lowest echelon of society. Well, you've made people more equal. A vast sum of the population is now more equal than they were before. A large number of people have scantily more than they had before, but they're less unequal. And a lot of people who had more now have considerably less because they're the ones that are actually paying for it. Politicians are unaffected. Politicians' donors are unaffected. The banks where the politicians store their money are unaffected. Are you seeing a pattern here? Inequality is ultimately best addressed by meritocracy. But that's never what they sell you because that doesn't actually, that won't get them any money. In a meritocratic, fully competitive system, they wouldn't have corporate monopolies to grift off of. It would be impossible for them to play id-poll politics. It would no longer be physically possible for them to do that. And I see that the cat has decided to come up here now. It's better than yelling at me. Cynic, life in Texas. When are you coming? I would like to visit Texas again at some point, yeah. I got to go get biltong from Anton's in Roanoke. The Patriot Cairo. Trump can destroy the fake indictment by testifying with his camera footage showing the FBI staged the document photos, thus prosecutorial misconduct. Yeah, but then the judge has to make a decision whether to throw the case out or not. You think the judge is actually not bought off or blackmailed? Eileen Cannon, yes. Oh my God, Trump appointee, so fair. A Trump appointee can be bribed. A Trump appointee can be blackmailed. I guarantee that that's what's happened in this case. I have no doubt that they'll find him guilty, by the way, in the end. It's just a matter of what the fuck do they do then? You're going to put a former president and current frontrunner in a jail cell? That might not go over too well. Blaze, when you go to the U.S., have a cook-off with Razor Fist. Show him a real steak. Yeah, my steaks are good. In fact, I'll be cooking that in a few days. Tomorrow, though, I think chili. Today is just leftover Greek pasta. Not a bad account. What are the chances of Harris' 2024 election run? 0% unless Joe Biden croaks or drops because of incapacity. And she wouldn't win anyway. Gavin Newsom would destroy her. Next news story, India, and here's a fulfillment of my prophecy from years ago. India demonstrates naval strength with dual aircraft carrier exercise, a feat China has yet to accomplish. Did I not say 5 or 6 years ago that I expected India to effectively leapfrog the Chinese at some point in the immediate future? In the social, military, diplomatic, etc. sense? Well, they've already done that. This is just part of it. This is a leapfrogging of China's Navy, which has grown and grown more sophisticated, admittedly speaking. Their first aircraft carrier, when they tried to float it, it almost sank. So they've made progress since then. India has managed to coordinate their Navy a bit better. You'll note that they, while they just do still have ramps, they haven't almost lost a carrier when it was still in the brown water territories just offshore. Their military is large and growing. Their economy is growing, although they have a demographic crisis leering up almost like China does. That time bomb will hit about 10 years after the Chinese demographic time bomb does. In my opinion, India, not China, is going to become the main linchpin of BRICS, assuming that it even stays there. We had a huge amount of statesmanship by Trump trying to drag India towards the West. By the way, doing the same with Egypt, which now has petitioned to join BRICS. That is actually true news. I had to look it up. A lot of the sites were basically pro-Russian groups, so I had to make sure that there were at least a couple Western sources that maybe are Russia-phobic in order to verify. It turns out that's true. Egypt wants to join BRICS. Under Trump, BRICS was at threat of collapsing, Brazil and India especially. Now you've got several new nations attempting to join BRICS. I don't think that long-term, though, it'll hold up anyway. I think that inter-party rivalry between India and China will become too much. I think that India is likely eventually to leave BRICS. Now, it doesn't mean that BRICS doesn't grow. You basically have another, Soviet sphere at this point. It's beginning to burgeon. But I don't think India will end up in the end being part of it, regardless of U.S. diplomacy. It might go rogue. You have right now a diplomatic crisis in India because they've got a monument that they put up, like a statue, and it shows Greater India. So India controlling also Bangladesh and Nepal and Pakistan and parts of Afghanistan as part of their reunification project, which, by the way, ultimately I actually support. I think Bangladesh would be better off if the nation of India were running their affairs. You can probably talk to the average Bangladeshi who's not nationalistic and they'd think the same. You were one nation for a very long time before anyway. You were split apart mainly by British influence. I don't see any reason why these people aren't capable of governing their own affairs as a bloc. If that happens, or even if it doesn't, India becomes a superpower. To the exclusion, arguably, of China being able to influence them. But China, the only reason they're willing to bankroll the other countries is for influence purpose. Well, if they can't get influence because they don't have enough money to buy you off, do you really need BRICS? No, you might decide that West is best. You might decide to form your own sphere. I think that India has colonial conquest in mind. I think they learned very well from their former British masters, and they intend to begin doing what China is doing, which is become a power pole of their own, which is something, again, that I've discussed as a possibility in times past. India and China have border incursions on one another constantly. The idea that BRICS is stable is a pipe dream of the East blockers, ultimately. And yes, South Africa is fucked. So, they don't really count in BRICS. I don't even know why the Chinese send them money anymore. Bocephus. Sticks, I'm in Texas right now. I'm melting. 91% humidity. If I move to New Hampshire, will I freeze to death? Will my Jimmy get frostbite? Very likely. Hey, kitty. Yeah, when she's shedding, when it's hot out, she wants to snuggle a lot more. Dennis the Menace, have you read John Michael Greer? No, I have not. Sparky, Trump-appointed judges are better described as Mitch McConnell judges. Yeah, exactly. That's the point. A good way of putting it. And then the final news story. By the way, please send no more super chats because I've got one more story here. We're going up on an hour, and I've got to do some shit. Thankfully, not cooking, but giving the bird. Very pleased by your answer on right to repair. I'd like to add the Apple methods are infecting the farming and auto manufacturing industries as well. It could become the biggest issue of our time. It's definitely already a big issue. Forge and Anvil. On Forge and Anvil, last Monday night, we had a spat about Garth Brooks calling Bud Light boycotters assholes. Check it out. We take all your chats every Monday, 8 p.m. Central. Clank, clank. Forge and Anvil over on Rumble, of course. Yeah, I saw that with Garth Brooks, but I mean, he's so irrelevant that I figured I wouldn't bother. Kenezy fam. What's your take on the middle school students protesting the Pride event by pulling down Pride flags, ripping up Pride posters and stickers while wearing red, white, and blue just outside of Boston? Yes, that was in Burlington, Massachusetts. I covered it the other day. I'm proud of them. I think they did the right thing. Middle schoolers are supposed to be irreverent. They're supposed to be little assholes anyway. So, you know, if your modern moralistic zeitgeist is you have to bow before LGBTQ plus MAP and ESG and live in the pod, and they act out against that, good. That's, by the way, that's a pretty good indicator of where the older Gen Alpha, youngest Gen Z is going to be going. I have a feeling we're in for a very, very interesting ride. Not a good lead to a third world war, but you know, we'll stay tuned. Swamp Donkey, India Super Pooper 2030. Don't underestimate India, my dude. You know, they're advancing past China, and that's no small feat. Sigil Stone, India and China are going to nuke each other into dust before letting the other become a superpower. Star Trek's post-atomic horror gonna become real. Well, China technically is a superpower. They're technically the dipole of the entire world. It's just that their pole is weaker right now. If India fractures off of BRICS and forms its own pole, though, and if the EU, as it's increasingly looking likely, has sort of a duopoly between the French and the Germans, and they form their own pole, you have a four-polar world. I think that the British and their sphere is likely to remain in the fold of the United States, as sort of the Commonwealth plus US and its expanded American allies. Then you'd have Europe and some of its diaspora around the Middle East mainly. Then you would have India and its pole, whatever it colonizes, and then you'd have China. It'd be very interesting. And by the way, Russia is no longer a superpower. Russia is basically the military attachment to China and their power. BW, he's not going to be able to run, is he? I wish he would flee to Hungary before they get to lock him up. Trump can run. Take an act of Congress to try to stop him. Ken, I'm an LPN, took your advice to self-improve, and I'm going back for my RN, working full-time in school full-time, but still got time for your stream on my way to my exam. Good luck on your exam, my dude, or dudette. You never know. I don't want to presume anyone's pronouns. Sparky, when I told you that India was pro-Russia, you dismissed me as mad, a danger to myself and others. I think you were going by a line taken out of context by the legacy media in a Modi speech. India straddles the line. It's very much like Erdogan in Turkey, actually. He's neither pro nor anti-West or East overall, but he got along. I mean, Trump was capable of having a fucking conversation with Modi. Biden, he can't have a conversation with his own wife at this point. And Brick's second wind will be a mighty tempest. Yeah, possibly. The Gunslinger. Why would Gen Z or Gen Alpha be more freedom-centric, lead to a third world war? Well, what happens when the youth start to go right-wing? What happened in the 1940s? I'll just ask you that rhetorically. And then the final, and by the way, please do not send any more super chats. I do have to go offline here in a couple of minutes. I won't read them out. Don't bother sending me money. You can't pay me enough. I gotta go eat and shit. Key building block of life found on ocean world orbiting Saturn. Yes, indeed. Enceladus actually apparently has phosphorus on it, in addition to various other compounds. And overall, the reason I'm interested in this, I do like science news. Enceladus or Enceladus. Can't remember which one. Here's what I would like to point out. Over the last decades, from the time that we started putting satellites, primitive ones as Sputnik, et cetera, the early U.S. space program in space, telescopes have gotten better. The probes have gotten more sophisticated. We're sending them further and further. We're planning to send people back to the moon again. I personally think we should have a lunar base just for shits and giggles. As long as there are robots there, then everything will be fine in the world. Every single time we make a leap in technology and we send it out a little further or it's a little bit more refined, don't we keep finding these building blocks of life and things like that in places we expected to be totally sterile? Nobody expected that an icy moon that far out would have anything resembling the prototypical building blocks of life. I mean, it's outside the Goldilocks zone, etc. When we went to Mars most recently with some new probes, Mars was reckoned prior to be a dead, dusty pile of fuck. It was basically just a shelf of rocks and dust and some ice at the poles. There was no dynamism. There was no energy in that system. It was a dead world. We now know that's not the case. We have considerable amount of wind there. We have possible geothermal activity. We had a couple of pictures that appear to possibly show that, although that has to be tested further. We know that there is ice below the surface. We know that there's some dynamism as far as semi-running water near the edges of the polar glaciers. We know that there was once running water fully on the planet because we found decomposed soils that are not demonstrably different from many of those found on Earth, other than, obviously, there's no decomposed organic matter in them that we can tell so far. The moon. The moon has ice crystals just below the surface. It was imagined to be an entire, once we got past the fantasy of it being made of cheese, what was it reckoned as? It's a dead pile of dust and rock. There's no water. There's no goddamn anything. Nothing could possibly have ever survived there. We now know, of course, the moon may have been once part of Earth, although personally, I happen to doubt it myself. But there's water there. There are pre-organic compounds there that could lead to the rise of life. We know that on Mars. Now we know that there's this moon out there orbiting Saturn that shows similar traits. It seems like every time we test a foreign object, we find the same things. We find the possibility that life could arise if the object were anywhere near the Goldilocks zone. Mars, arguably, it could have some archaebacteria or something on it. Probably anything beyond that, you're wasting your time. With the Saturn's moon, it's a little bit far out there. There's not a whole lot of energy in a system that cold. If we were to extrapolate and assume that our personal solar system is roughly average, would you not expect to find a plethora of that material in Goldilocks zones on every star system around the whole fucking galaxy? Well, then clearly there's life out there. This is yet another body within our own solar system that has phosphorus and, among other things, carboniferous material. It seems to be everywhere. It's almost like the only thing that sets Earth apart as Earth-like is the presence of a lot of water, specifically because of the temperature it happens to be maintained at. Well, if that's the case, then any Earth-like planet within the Goldilocks zone should have a good chance of presumptive life arising. There are several right within the cluster within this own galaxy. I have a feeling that there's plenty of life out there, including intelligent life, and yes, including life more intelligent than us. I do not believe it visits Earth, but I do believe that at least some of it may be aware of our existence. It is entirely possible. When we're finding this kind of material on bodies, we used to think, oh, this moon, all it is a chunk of rock, nobody cares, covered in ice. That's all that's there. We now know that there's a lot more there than we could tell before. We keep finding this over and over and over and over again. By the way, yes, the liquid core and magnetic field, as far as Earth goes, is important. Why would that not be a common feature? It's moons seem to be quite common. Let's see. But yes, please, no more super chats here. Curse these metal hands. China still pays South Africa partially because of the import of Cape of Good Hope for trade and as a platform to trade elsewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, good point, I suppose. Yeah, because of its geographic location. Could be overrun at any time by riots. Sparky, your boy General Milley recently described Russia as a superpower. Not my boy. I don't care what General Milley has to say. Not a banned account. Why are advanced aliens such awful pilots? Crash. Yes, I know. They frequently crash in people's backyards and then are easily picked up by camera. I've noted that this is very interesting. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. I will be back tomorrow with another live stream. I appreciate you all tuning in. By the way, almost 1,000 more people watching on Rumble than on YouTube. This is becoming a repeat feature. Rumble doesn't hate my guts. They actually care that I'm actually able to express myself. I've thought about doing more Rumble exclusives for this reason. So yes, I will be back tomorrow with various news again. That's about all. Peace out.